Welcome to Moments with Marianne. I'm so delighted we're spending this time here today. We have an inspirational show coming right up with special guest Nik Sharma, and he's here today to share with us his new cookbook, Season, Big Flavors, Beautiful Food. Now, Nik is the writer, photographer, and recipe developer behind A Brown Table. Nik also has a weekly column called A Brown Kitchen, which appears in the San Francisco Chronicle, and he has written for Taste, Food 52, Eatery, among many others. He was also featured in America the Great Cookbook, which contains recipes from 100 top chefs and cooks from the country. Nik lives in Oakland, and he's here today to share with us, of course, his new cookbook, Season. So let's welcome to the show, Nik Sharma.
Hi, Marianne. Thanks for having me in today.
Oh, what a pleasure it is to have you here. And my goodness, once I picked up your cookbook, I could not put it down. And most people don't hear that for a cookbook, but you have such amazing recipes in this.
Oh, wow. That is amazing to hear.
Yeah, it's such a journey. Well, and so I have to ask, when did you start? What was like the first time you started experimenting with food and bold flavors?
I think it happened after, as an adult, when I moved to America, is when I started to explore food more from a cooking perspective and just started to have fun with it. And that's when I really started to explore how flavor could be brought into home cooking.
Yeah, was there like a certain experiment that you did and it kind of went awry? Because that's how
oh my gosh. Oh my gosh, that's how I actually started cooking, through a lot of mistakes and making a mess. But to be honest, I grew up in India, and so that's where a lot of my foundations were laid in terms of cooking. I didn't go to culinary school. Everything I watched was from my parents or my grandmother. And then when I moved to America, I was living alone, so I was kind of forced to cook by myself. But at the same time, I kind of also wanted to not only cook the same dishes that I eat in India, kind of bring those flavors into the food that I was eating here. And that's when I started experimenting with flavors. So I would pull in things that you traditionally might not find in either cuisine, and change the sauce in my pasta, change a couple of the spices in there, and play with the types of cheeses that I was tasting, and that made it fun for me. And that's how I started to learn how to explore food from a flavor standpoint.
Well, and what's very fascinating, I understand you take all of your own photos too, which really add to the meal.
Yeah, so I started out as a blogger, and before I became a columnist for the Chronicle, for the San Francisco Chronicle, and because of the nature of the medium of a blog, I had to learn how to photograph because it's so visual. I always tell people that people who run a blog, they're always feeding people with their eyes versus their mouths, actually. And I had to learn how to photograph. During the course of this period when I started the blog, I kind of developed my own point of view on photography, and my photos are usually low lit, so there's less light coming in, but the focus is always on the food or the process that's taking place. I like movement, so I try to showcase that in my photos. I think it actually makes for a much more fun and exciting experience for a reader, because they get to see things that you otherwise wouldn't pay attention to, like perhaps the squirting of a lime, putting that lime juice on a dish, those few drops. I like those moments because they're so simple, they're so unappreciated, and I like to give them a little bit of attention that they deserve.
I think it makes us more mindful about the food that we're cooking and really, kind of dive into the process of cooking as this really joyful thing, a joyful experience, as opposed to something we just have to get done to eat.
Yeah. And that's kind of what I want people to do is just because we all lead such busy lives. It's kind of nice just to take a moment, a few seconds, and just watch that happening. It takes away a lot of the stress. That's what it did for me and still does for me because my mind is elsewhere now. And so I try to do that with the photos. It's also a great way. I've worked in a restaurant before, and it's a great way for me to kind of pay homage also to the people in the kitchen, the process of cooking, because I left my job in science and then moved into cooking. So it's in a way, like my tribute to the beauty of what it is to cook.
Yeah. For someone like me who's a visual learner, having, the photos is more than just the beauty of it all. It really helps me to get that picture of how it all came together.
Right. And I think that's the thing that also I feel instructional photos are very helpful versus just a bunch of text, especially when you're doing a recipe that requires a little bit, like, for example, pastry or a pie. It's easier to understand things when you see the photos or you look at a video. And the book provides that opportunity to do that. So I want people to find things easy, and that's what I find this is one of the best ways to do it.
Well, you have a quote, and I'm hoping I get this correct. Seasoning is just a way to achieve flavor in food we eat. It represents our desire to connect with our past, present, and future. It tells our story. And I love that because it adds so much more depth to what it is that we do when we're cooking. What does it do to you when you're getting a meal together, when you're cooking?
So the main reason why we cook, well, there are a couple of reasons why we cook. One is obviously to nourish our bodies, which is our literal need to cook and eat. The second thing is we're also trying to pass down traditions to our kids or family members. The next thing we're trying to do is also build relationships with people that we've never met, which is often why we invite people over for dinner or lunch to our homes or to a party and to celebrate or even a funeral, And so we're always looking to connect at some emotional standpoint, and I found that food has always been a very important part of that in every culture you look. And that is what I feel, and that is something that I was doing. I had moved from India to America, and I was using the food and the ingredients, or even the flavors, the taste, and the textures that I had grown up experiencing in one country, but then experiencing it back in a new country, my new home, America. And so it was a way for me to connect all those elements in my life. So I was connecting my past, what my present was at the time, and then also building the stage for the future.
I love that. I think that's so just absolutely fascinating. And you can see that in your recipes. I have to tell you, the cover is this fabulous cucumber salad. And I actually made that the other night, and I had some friends over.
Oh, wow.
Loved it. Absolutely loved it.
Oh, great.
Yeah, so it's something, your book is something people can actually gather around and do together. It's not, it doesn't have to be a solo event.
Yeah, and actually I tell a lot of people that, like, if you're having, like, a friends over for a very small casual occasion or even family or it's Thanksgiving or Christmas, pick a recipe from the book. Give each one a recipe from the book to cook and then have them bring it over or cook it together at your place if you have, the capacity to do that. It's amazing because then you have a conversation. You talk about something fun. And I think it helps connect people in such a fun and exciting way.
What are some of your favorite recipes from season?
So I have a sweet tooth. I have to admit this. I have a terrible sweet tooth. I will definitely recommend the sweet potato bibinka since we're getting close to Thanksgiving. It's got sweet potatoes, maple syrup, and a hint of nutmeg, a little bit of coconut milk, and all you do is you bake it in the oven the night before, let it sit, and the next day it's ready. And it's a good substitute for a pie if you don't want to go through all the effort of making a pie. The next thing I would recommend is making the leg of lamb. If you like lamb, I think that's a wonderful dish to make. It's all you do is you season the meat and then you stick it in the oven. Another dish that I strongly recommend is to make the hot green chutney. It's a condiment that I created to use out all those leftovers of kale and arugula that sits at the back of the fridge. You make the sauce, and the sauce is multifunctional. You can add it to roast chicken, use it as a dipping sauce for crudités. There's a lot that you could do with it.
Wow. Well, I mean, there's so many fabulous recipes in here. It'd be difficult to even touch on a small portion of them. They're just amazing. You know, I'm looking through them, going, "Gosh, okay, I need to make all of this, but I'm going to get my friends, to come over and help me do it." So,
I think that's the best way to do it.
yeah, to have, to kind of develop that community. I think this is actually a perfect gift for the holidays too, because we have the holidays coming up. You have that special someone who loves to be in the kitchen. This is not your mama's cookbook, So. But to talk about family, you use some inspiration from, kind of, being in India. Do you use any of your family recipes as well?
There is the potato chops, which I strongly recommend to people who love meat and potatoes. Start with that. It's one of the simplest and the easiest recipes in the book, but it's delicious. All you need is to make mashed potatoes, and you season them with salt and pepper. And then you take ground lamb, and if you don't like lamb, you could use ground beef, you could use ground turkey, ground chicken. You cook the meat separately, and then you create this kind of an envelope with the mashed potatoes. It's like a dumpling in essence. All you do is you make a pocket with the mashed potatoes, you put the meat in the center, and then fold it over, season it with breadcrumbs, and then pan fry them, and they're ready. And it's delicious. And it's something that I grew up eating with, and I said, when I'm writing the book, I'm going to put that in there.
I'm so glad you did. That's going to be one of the next ones that I try, because it just sounds absolutely fabulous. And there's just so many in this book. Goodness. So when you're going to get a recipe together and you have something in your mind, do you head to a local farmer's market? Because I know San Francisco has a fabulous farmer's market. Do you head out that way and kind of collect the things that you think you're going to use? Do you already have the stuff at home? How does that work for you?
So it either goes two ways. If I'm going to the farmer's market, I usually buy what's available there and then work with that. Because farmers markets are so seasonal, if I come up with something in my mind and it's not available, then I'm kind of thrown into a trap. But that's usually the way I proceed. If I'm coming from a standpoint where I know what the recipe is in my head, then I usually go to my local grocery store, which is called Farmer Joe's. And they have stuff that I need, and then that's where I go from.
And just kind of go from there. And then when you're working to set everything up, to take the lovely pictures that you do, because I know you actually have won some awards for the photography that you do for your work here. Is it something that takes like all day for you to do, or is it you probably have it down that you could just do it in a snap right now, huh?
With the book, it was hard because I have to admit, I was also cooking, styling, and shooting, so I usually ended up doing 1 or 2 recipes a day. And then just to make sure that the photos were okay once they were uploaded, and otherwise if I wasn't happy, I had to go back and reshoot. So it did take a while.
Mm-hmm. Well, I can imagine when you're experimenting, you have a lot of friends that want to come over, right?
Oh, it's a good thing, though. I always have friends over. I love to share food.
Mm-hmm. Well, that's what makes this book such an amazing book, because it really is about kind of community and getting together with people.
Yeah, and I think, that's one of the things that books are so powerful, especially cookbooks, because they take a lot of the elements of the barriers that some people feel, when they go to someone's house, like, oh, should I do this? I'm stressed out. Is my dish going to look okay? But food kind of, when you're at the table, people don't really think about those things because you're having fun. And I think that's something that needs to be appreciated more. And I'm so happy that people looking at this book as more from a community perspective and trying to build relationships with people, because that is such an amazing thing and something we really need right now in the world.
Yeah, without a doubt. Without a doubt, is really to kind of invite our neighbors over and have more of that community meals where we're getting to really know people next door.
Yeah, and we used to do that like a couple of decades ago. For some reason, it kind of went away.
Well, I think it's something your book will help bring back, because I really enjoyed Season. I thought it had so many great recipes where you can have somebody do some cutting, maybe chopping up some like celery or
Yeah.
getting it all together.
Yeah, yeah. And, your kids, if you have kids at home, get them involved. Kids love to cook from what I've seen with my friends, and it's just so much fun.
Mhm. Without a doubt. Without a doubt, they can everyone can get involved and just enjoy that whole process. Well, and I wanted to ask you also. I know that you've been writing a recipe column for the San Francisco Chronicle. How long
Yeah.
have you been doing that? Because with recipes like this, I'm sure they've been holding on to you for a long time.
So I've been writing the column for about 2 years, and I try to keep the content. I was working on the book, and I was writing the column at the same. They were happening simultaneously, so it was an interesting process as a first-time author to kind of separate myself from both and make sure that the content wasn't spilling over, because I like to have different content everywhere. It was a challenge, but it was also a fun challenge just to be able to first have that ability and the platform to do that, but also at the same time kind of teach myself, okay, this is what I can do here, but this is better for the book. And I think once I figured that out, it became a much easier process.
Yeah, so you had like some recipes you're thinking, okay, this is going to be perfect for my column, and other ones
right.
were going to be just perfect for the book.
Yeah, exactly. Because they reach different audiences also. And it was fun because I'm learning with the people that are reading the column simultaneously, what they like, what they don't like, what's available, what's not. So it was actually an amazing process.
That's actually pretty interesting, especially because I know that you're kind of known for this experimentation kind of philosophy in your cooking.
Yeah.
Is that kind of why you've had so much success, because you're doing something that's kind of out of the box?
I think one of the things I really try to find out what people really want from me as a writer when I'm creating a recipe. And I think, writing the column, writing a blog, and then writing the book really helps me connect with them. And that's also the most fun bit for me, because it's not just me creating something in my room and then sending it out to the world. It's me basing those ideas on what they want and what I'm seeing, what they really desire. And I think that's for me the best part, because I'm doing what people want me to do, but I'm also doing it in my own way. And one of the things I always tell people is don't stress yourself out. And I think home cooks, we're always stressed out about whether we have to impress people when they come over, or everything has to succeed the first time. And I tell people directly that, hey, when I became a home cook, I'm self-taught. And then I did go and work in a pastry shop. But the thing is, you learn from your mistakes. You'll never remember anything you succeed at. So it's okay to fail. And if it doesn't work the first time, do it again. Do it in your own way. And you'll remember and understand why it didn't happen.
Yeah. I can look back on some of my cooking oopses, where things kind of all came out not right, or nothing looked like the picture,
Oh, yeah. That's a big thing. It doesn't match the photo.
Yeah, I've made a few pies that looked absolutely nothing like the picture whatsoever. I'm like, I think I need to take this back to the drawing board. I must have missed something. And that's why I really appreciate the photos that you have, because it kind of helps people along the way to kind of getting an understanding of what it's supposed to look like,
Yeah. That's one of the things. I really, really, really want to be like a champion for the home cook. And so whatever way I can make things easy. I'm also a lazy cook, and I'm pretty open about this. I love my blender because I can add things to the blender. I love instructional photos because it's easier for me also to remember what's happening. It's also easier for me to write about it then. I just want people to have fun in the kitchen versus walking in and looking at it as like a room of torture or stress.
You know what? Sometimes it feels like that for me. I get it, but with yeah, you kind of walk in and go, oh, good Lord, how's this going to come together? But yeah, with your pictures and the way you have it, it just makes it easy. And I love, because you also get your hands in there. You're working with that food,
Yeah, and I want everyone to kind of imagine themselves in the kitchen. That's one of the reasons I do that, because once you see someone in those photos. And I really don't show my face too often in those photos, but I think the hands it's neutral.
Mm-hmm.
Everybody sees it and they can see themselves in the kitchen cooking. And that is what I want.
I think that's a great place to be, not stressed, enjoying cooking, having it as a community, and of course, having people pick up your book, Season. Nik, where can people connect with you and be part of your community?
Yeah, so people can connect with me on Instagram. My account is abroundtable. You can also find me on my website, which is www.abroundtable.com.
And then they can connect with I know you have a blog from there, and right now
right.
I'm staring down some cookies on your blog that look amazing. So I'm adding all this to my I need to cook this list, because it looks you make it look fun and easy to do, and I appreciate that about you.
Thank you. I really love hearing people when they say that, because that's what I really want to achieve.
Yeah, well, you've done it so well. You really have. Well, Nik, thank you so much for taking the time to be on the show with us here today.
Thank you for having me on today. It was wonderful talking with you.
Well, thank you so much, Nik. It has been such a pleasure to spend this time with you and, of course, to talk about your new cookbook, Season. Big flavor, beautiful food. Again, you can connect with Nik at abroundtable.com. It has fabulous recipes that have been tested. They not only look great, they taste great. So make sure to drop over there and check out his blog. Nik's book, Season, is also available on Amazon, Barnes & Noble, and of course, all indie bookstores. Well, we're at the end of our time today. I would like to thank everyone for tuning in. You're listening to Moments with Marianne. And remember, make every moment count.
In a single moment, your life can change. Moments with Marianne is a transformative hour that covers an endless array of topics with the best of the best. Her guests are leaders in their fields, ranging from inspirational authors, top industry leaders, and business and spiritual entrepreneurs. Each guest is gifted and a true visionary, a recognized leader in her own work, and while teaching others to develop, refocus, and grow, Marianne will bring the best guest and sometimes a special surprise. Don't miss this. You never know just which moment will change your life forever. Moments with Marianne airs every Sunday, Monday, Thursday, and Friday at 8 p.m. Eastern and 5 p.m. Pacific Time. Make sure to tune in and visit momentswithmarianne.com for more information.